Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of What the FinTech, the podcast from the team behind FinTech Futures and the Banking Technology magazine. My name is Paul Hindle, Managing Editor at FinTech Futures, and for this episode we're joined by Cassie Craddock, Managing Director for UK and Europe at Ripple. Cassie, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. It's great to have you here. And just to get started, would you like to quickly let us know a bit more about yourself and your role at Ripple then?
Yeah, sure. So hi everybody, I'm Cassie Craddock, Managing Director for the UK and Europe at Ripple. I've been at Ripple for 9 years, so one of the early employees based in London, and I'm responsible for all commercial activity here in the UK and Europe, our regulatory engagements with both the FCA and the CSSF. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Excellent. Sounds great. And again, great to have you here, and thanks so much for taking the time out to speak with us today. So on the show this week, we'll be diving into the work Ripple is doing to transform cross-border payments through blockchain technology and stablecoins, while navigating the evolving regulatory landscape in Europe. In particular, we'll discuss how Ripple's recent EMI licenses in the UK and Luxembourg are positioning the company for significant growth across the European markets, and what these regulatory milestones mean for clients and partnerships in the region. And we'll also explore the growing role of stablecoins in cross-border transactions, examining the advantages they offer over traditional methods and how Ripple's USD stablecoin fits into the company's broader vision. So to start off with then, Cassie, one thing I did want to touch on is alongside your role at Ripple, you're also a football player and have played in the Women's Premier League. How have you found balancing your footballing career with your career in financial services?
Yeah, so look, when I was younger, I always had been aspired to be a professional footballer. But unfortunately, I was born in the wrong decade. And actually, those opportunities were pretty small for young girls of my age who wanted to or had the ambitions to do that. And so it wasn't really a realistic ambition to be a full-time footballer. So I had to balance that between playing football, but also managing my own career. And when I was thinking about what do I want to do long-term, I was always wanted to work in an environment where I could collaborate, I could work as part of a team, or I could be at the forefront of innovation and I could build something. So that lends itself really nicely to working within kind of startup ecosystems, because working in startups is really hard. Building something from scratch, from ground up, is really hard. Fundraising is really hard. And actually, it lends itself really nicely to the core competencies of being as part of a team that is working and driving towards something. So my early stage career was focused on startups. I was an early employee at a company called MangoPay that exited in 2015 to Credit Mutual Archaea. And what led me to Ripple was really this idea of being able to solve financial access using emerging technologies. So when I joined in 2017, 9 years ago, blockchain and crypto was very early. It's a nascent technology. There was a lot of naysayers, if you like. And I think joining and really buying into the huge benefits of leveraging blockchain technology to improve financial access, to improve the way that value is moved around the world, that was a particularly exciting time for me. And, if I fast forward 9 years to where we are today, Ripple is in a very unique position that we have. Not only are we focusing on solving that kind of cross-border payment challenge, we're also delivering a suite of products that really solve for banks and financial institutions who want to build in this space. It's a very different world, playing high-level sport versus working in fintechs, but there's a lot of overlap. And if I think about this idea of building, of trying to find opportunity, I think working as part of a team, working in an industry that is always changing, always dynamic, it lends itself really nicely to my background in particular around working as part of a team to score goals is very similar in a sense to working as part of a team to solve problems for customers. You have to be very resilient. You have to adapt to change, whether or not you're playing in the best cup final ever or if you're playing in a relegation battle. It's very much the same again, working as part of a team to be able to deliver things for customers. Sometimes things go wrong and you have to be resilient. You have to be able to adapt to change. And that's been something that I think underpins the DNA of me, but also it lends itself really nicely to emerging technologies, emerging companies that are growing and, that hyper growth mode that Ripple is in. Yeah, I think having that competitiveness, that drive, that resilience, that ability to adapt and overcome, I think that lends itself really nicely to this particular space.
Excellent. And you've obviously mentioned Ripple's growth there. I mentioned in the introduction, the company secured EMI licenses in both UK and Luxembourg recently. How do these approvals position Ripple for growth in the UK and European markets then?
Yeah, so we are exceptionally excited about our regulatory approvals here in the UK and in Europe. So we announced that we obtained our e-money license and our MLR registration in the UK with the FCA. And also, we recently announced that we had acquired our e-money license out of Luxembourg with the CSSF regulator. So we're exceptionally excited about that. But what does it actually mean for our business? So if I take a step back and kind of walk you through the journey and the evolution of Ripple and why licensing has been a real critical milestone for us, I then can hopefully frame where we're going as a firm. So in 2012, we really started down the path of trying to solve the multi-trillion-dollar cross-border payment challenge. And what that is, being able to move value around the globe seamlessly, fast, cost effectively. Back then, it continues to still be a real pain point. And I often use the example of if I want to deliver payments to Australia, and if I wanted to send money to my aunt who lives out there, doing that is really tough. Sometimes it's faster to get on a plane, quicker to get on a plane and fly the cash there than actually to send it in a cross-border way. In 2026, in some scenarios, it's still real. And so over a decade ago, we really wanted to go down the path of how can we deliver value around the world more seamlessly, more transparently, and more cost effectively. And blockchain technology and crypto and digital assets really does that. So we set down that path of doing so. And that product today is called Ripple Payments. But in doing that, what we offered was technology, the ability to connect using blockchain technology to be able to connect into banks and financial institutions around the globe to deliver those last miles. But over a period of time, what we heard from our clients, our banks, some of the largest banks in the world, financial institutions, is that they wanted the benefits of the technology, but they wanted to abstract all the complexities away from doing that. They wanted to be able to partner with a trusted advisor, partner that they could rely on to manage liquidity, to manage custody technology, to manage payment infrastructure, and to provide them all of these benefits to their customers in a regulated way. So we set down the path, a few years ago of obtaining licenses around the world. And now we're proud to have 75 licenses around the world, most recently the UK and Luxembourg. And really that is to be able to provide a regulatory wrapper around our payment offering to say, hey, Ripple, you just deliver those payments instantly, more transparently and more cost effectively, but we want you to do that on our behalf. And I think that from our perspective is that we're solving customer pain points. We've listened to the market. We're now delivering a much better payments experience for our customers, but also it sets us apart from our competitors in the market because not only are we providing end-to-end digital asset infrastructure through stablecoins, custody, tokenization, payments, etc., we're also doing that in a unique way by providing a regulatory wrapper that sits around that. Because for us, it's about being able to provide compliant regulatory first solutions to our customers that ultimately expect that. We're dealing with the largest financial institutions in the world, and they expect their partner to be able to do that. So we're particularly excited about that activation of those licenses in this market. And we expect that this will supercharge our regulatory business here, which we're very excited about.
Excellent. You touched on a few things there. I mean, what new opportunities do these licenses unlock for your clients in the region, and how do they align with your, broader global strategy as well?
So the UK and Europe has been a significant hub for Ripple for around a decade now. We started to invest in the UK market. Our London office is our second largest office outside of our HQ in San Francisco. And the reason why we decided around about a decade ago to invest in the UK is that we firstly believed that there was a really fantastic opportunity because of London being a huge financial services hub. That meant that we could attract the best talent, but also there was a emerging, and continues to be, emerging appetite for innovation within financial services. And so it lent itself really nicely to Ripple choosing the UK to be a significant hub. We now have over 200 employees across our UK and European business. We're very excited that we will be moving to our new office shortly. And this is really our commitment and dedication to London and the UK market. And our goal really is not only to take the firms that we've acquired. Last year, we spent over $2.5 billion acquiring Prime Brokerage, Hidden Road, G Treasury, which is a treasury management platform, and other acquisitions such as Palisade and Rail. So taking those individuals and putting them under one roof and enabling that kind of cross-pollination across each parts of the Ripple business, but also a really great opportunity for us to expand and to hire, which is exceptionally exciting. More broadly, though, in Europe, I think what's really important to us is that we have employees and we invest in regions where our customers are. Because the only way that you can solve customer problems is deeply understanding them. And the way that you deeply understand them is by spending a lot of time with them. So in Europe, we're very proud to operate a really large custody business. So some of the largest banks in this region, such as Soc Gen, such as Intesa Sanpaolo, they are leveraging our custody technology. And so it's really important for us to continue to grow and invest in our product team out here and our engineering team out of Geneva, which is our hub for our custody team. We also announced our opening of our Luxembourg office on the back of obtaining our e-money license, and we continue to have smaller offices in Iceland and Ireland as well. So we want to invest in this region. We're really excited about our licensing. We want to work with our customers to not only deliver them products and solutions, but actually really to help them grow their digital asset strategy, which is, I think, is a really exciting position to be in. And we've started to see on the back of MiCA here in Europe that there's a real growth appetite, hence why we have huge ambitions to grow in this region.
Excellent. And what would you say Ripple's USP is then, I guess, in this space when it comes to the competitors in the sector as well?
For us, there's a couple of things. Large banks such as SocGen, large financial institutions, they want to work with a partner that has experience, that they can trust, and that they can work with on a longevity basis. So if I set aside our product strategy, which I can go into a second, ultimately when these banks and financial institutions are picking a partner, they want somebody that's been in the market for a very long time, which is very hard. The industry is there's not vendors, if you like, that's been here for 2 decades. It's still an early-ish market, but Ripple has been in the market for over a decade now, which lends itself really nicely to that kind of trust and ability to work very closely. But we've also been working with very large banks since really early on in our existence. So I think that really does set us apart, that we know how to manage some of the largest clients in the world because we've been doing it for a very long period of time. I think that's a unique proprietary piece of experience that we have in this space. We've just been here, done it for a really long time. We've also built up a wealth of experience that have helped us to build and shape products that really help customers really realize the opportunity of the digital asset space. And I often use the example of we built payment infrastructure. We built stablecoin payment infrastructure many, many, many years ago. I know it's now the hottest topic in town, but we've been doing this for such a long period of time. So we understand deeply the liquidity challenges for that, the ability to partner to create comprehensive networks around the globe to help deliver last mile payments with the utmost certainty. We understand custody technology deeply through partnerships, acquisition, but also just being really early in the space. So that's deeply rooted in the DNA of us as a firm. And that really positions us very nicely to be able to go and help and support these banks and financial institutions bring it to life. And then more broadly, our product strategy. So we've been in a position where we have been acquiring firms. And the reason why we're choosing these firms is not just by luck. It's really about partnering with acquiring the best technology in the market, enabling the Ripple brand to help supercharge those, if you like. So I think we want to be able to provide our customers the full life cycle of digital asset infrastructure. So we want to be able to provide them with custody, which we know is the entry point, and then help them create use cases such as tokenization, payments, etc. We need them to be able to do that. And often they want to do that with one partner that has a comprehensive suite of solutions. So through acquisitions and building our own tech and our own experiences over many years, we've now got this comprehensive end-to-end solution. And you wrap in that regulatory wrapper as well. And we have a really compelling offering now to banks and financial institutions that simply want a partner that they can go on a very long-term digital asset journey with.
FinTech leaders, this is your moment. The Banking Tech Awards 2026 nomination deadline is fast approaching. You have until the 10th of July to submit your entry and secure your place among the industry's best. Whether you're innovating in AI, RegTech, PayTech, or banking technology, this is your chance to be recognised on a global stage. So visit the Banking Tech Awards website now and get those nominations in.
So I did want to dive into the topic of stablecoins a bit more then. There's obviously been gaining a huge amount of traction recently with a particular focus on the use in cross-border payments. What advantages would you say stablecoins offer over traditional methods in the space?
Yeah, so I think Ripple's in a unique position because not only are we a stablecoin issuer, we're also providing stablecoin rails through our Ripple payments business as well. So let me try to share a little bit around why we do both and some of the benefits for that. So firstly, we've been a stablecoin issuer now since late 2024. That stablecoin is called RLUSD, and RLUSD has a $1.5 billion market cap, just a top 10 USD stablecoin, but also one of the fastest growing, which is exceptionally exciting. Now, the reason why we created this stablecoin was a couple of reasons. Firstly, the stablecoin market is fast growing. It's a $150 trillion market, and we expect it to be a $150 trillion market. And therefore, we saw an opportunity to be a part of a industry or a market that was growing, and it felt right. But also, not only that, there was also a definite opportunity to bring a highly compliant first stablecoin, which is why we went down the path of issuing that stablecoin out of New York and is an NYDFS regulated stablecoin. But more importantly, actually, was that our customers were asking for it. I think for us, issuing a stablecoin wasn't just a case of just issuing a stablecoin. We really wanted to solve customer pain points. And actually, stablecoins really enable us to accelerate our payments business because we can use RLUSD as part of our cross-border payment flow, but also as a really great piece of infrastructure tool that can, for example, help with on and off ramps into the XRPL ecosystem. So we took advantage of a fast-moving market, but also really we wanted to solve customer pain points by delivering a compliant first stablecoin that we could use as part of our products and services more broadly. Now, the benefits of stablecoins are that cross-border payments using stablecoins is a 24/7, 365 market, which may not mean a lot to a lot of people, but when I talk to customers, for example, I was out at dinner last night with one of our longest serving customers who wants to deliver payments into the Philippines. And he said to me, before stablecoins and before partnering with Ripple, we used to fear bank holidays and the weekends, because they had to pre-fund their accounts many days in advance, which became a liquidity challenge for them. And, well, heaven forbid that they actually got a huge influx of customer demand that meant that they didn't have liquidity in that market. And so he was articulating the value that using stablecoins and Ripple payments has brought just for being able to do it 24/7, 365, which I thought was really, really interesting. But actually, just the ability to move value more quickly, more seamlessly, more transparently, I think that is a really true benefit of using stablecoins. And we've seen that benefit for many years. We've processed over $100 billion of payments to date. We've also started to see more recently, I think fintechs have always been very forward-thinking in terms of leveraging emerging technologies to be able to solve their customer pain points. The customer pain point, for example, here is I need to move money faster and cheaper. But what's been really interesting is over the last probably 24 months or so, is this more accelerated interest from a bank perspective, with banks saying, hey, Ripple, how do I know that I need a stablecoin strategy because my customers are telling me, hey, what you're doing today in terms of cross-border is not working. Help us understand how to do that. And that's been a real shift in that mindset from a bank perspective. And a really good example of that, we've been working with SocGen now on the custody side for quite some time. They issued their own stablecoin, EuroCV, and they do that on the XRP ledger as well. And now they're thinking, okay, I know that I'm now looking at exploring payments use cases their customers are asking for. And I think that is a really great case study of banks really leaning into the space to solve problems. And in particular, what's very exciting is that stablecoins are at the forefront of the forefront of how banks are thinking here in Europe.
Excellent. With stablecoin regulations evolving rapidly in the UK and Europe at the moment, how is Ripple navigating these changes?
So we believe that utility will be the key driver of stablecoin adoption. And what we've seen over the last year or so is that there's a clear demand for compliance-first stablecoins here in Europe. And our e-money license enables us to issue a compliant stablecoin here in Europe. And we're really excited about working with the CSSF out of Luxembourg to be able to do that. So I think for us, we're looking forward to sharing the good news as it comes.
Excellent. I guess on the topic of stablecoins, then, in your view, how could the widespread adoption of stablecoins reshape the global financial system, do you think?
I think what's really exciting is that we're still pretty early, but banks and financial institutions are really waking up to the benefits of leveraging stablecoins for cross-border payments. So, I shared the story around SocGen, but SocGen aren't alone in this idea around banks really looking and exploring the ways of leveraging this technology to move value. I think that there is a fantastic opportunity to unlock greater financial access, to be able to unlock emerging regions. And I think the industry is fast evolving into, again, trying to solve customer problems versus just doing things for the sake of it. And I think that's been a fundamental shift in the way that digital assets are perceived and used in this space.
And I guess we look beyond cross-border payments. And what are some of the most promising use cases for stablecoins and blockchain that Ripple is exploring?
I think one of the most transformational acquisitions that we made last year was the acquisition of Hindle, which is a prime brokerage, and at the time, one of the largest deals in the digital asset space. And that's a really exciting opportunity for us because being the first digital asset firm that owns a prime brokerage really was that another significant step in bridging the gap between TradFi and the digital asset space. And for us, what's been really compelling has been the prime brokerage business. Ripple Prime has really kind of been supercharged on the back of that. So since that acquisition, we've seen a 3x growth in that particular business line, which is particularly exciting. But stablecoins more broadly, I think cross-border payments is an absolute killer use case, and we're starting to see banks, financial institutions really leaning in. But also tokenization use cases. Stablecoins are a key piece of infrastructure in order to be able to get in and out of these tokenized instruments. And I think we've started to see larger traditional players in the space really kind of looking at tokenization, tokenized bonds, money market funds, etc., as a key use case. And I think one of the really exciting opportunities that we've been working on and announced was really around Aviva and how we can use not only stablecoins, but tokenized assets in repo use cases, which I think is a really great opportunity and further validation of digital assets within the capital market space. And again, we're pretty early, but I think that the fact that we are working with some of the largest asset managers here in the UK, it's that kind of validation that there is an opportunity here, and it's something that we're very excited about.
Excellent. And just briefly then, scalability and interoperability are often cited as challenges for blockchain-based solutions. How is Ripple addressing these issues and to ensure seamless cross-border transactions?
Yeah, I think in order for this space to be able to evolve at the scale and the scale that opportunity presents itself to, interoperability is critical. And I think what's really important, again, I've said it a few times in this podcast, is that fintechs, financial institutions, their customers aren't really that bothered about how money moves and the technology that sits underneath it. They're really bothered about the experience that they get. And so in order to be able to actually deliver that seamless customer experience, we need traditional financial systems and DeFi protocols to be able to be interoperable together and to work in a multi-chain world. And so I think that in order for us to see the true benefits of that has to come to life. But also, we need to be very mindful of fragmentation of regulation around the globe. In order to be able to really see the benefits of kind of a truly global adoption, we need regulators to be more collaborative in order to be able to see such an outcome.
Excellent. I guess to sum up then, how do you see the blockchain and digital asset industry evolving over the next few years, and what role will Ripple play in shaping that future?
I think for us, we've already seen banks and financial institutions leaning into the space. If I look at where we are at in 2026, most of the largest players in the world have a digital strategy and are working on executing against that digital strategy. So the train has kind of left the station. We know that these banks and financial institutions are really leaning in, and it's about now building business cases, building revenue, and transforming the way that the banks operate using this underlying technology, which I think is an exceptionally exciting opportunity. And for somebody that's been in the space for such a long period of time, I think that it's a really, really great time to be here. And I think what's really interesting is that we've seen, in particular over the last 18 months, things go from pilots. Banks aren't thinking about pilots anymore. They're thinking about real world production use cases and solving for utility. For us at Ripple, we want to be the underlying technology that sits behind that. So we want to own that full kind of infrastructure piece across custody, stablecoin, payments, prime brokerage, treasury management. We want to own that full life cycle. And we believe that we have the pieces of the puzzle that can deliver on that at scale to some of the largest financial institutions in the world. I think what's also fantastic to see is that banks and financial institutions that set down this path many years ago, they're now looking to broaden the way that they think about the space. So they may have started down the path of just simply doing custody, which in 2023 was pioneering. These banks are now thinking, okay, I don't just want to custody the asset. I want to be able to trade with that asset. I want to be able to move value. I want to be able to offer tokenization use cases to my customers. So they're really broadening the scope of what they're doing within the space. And Ripple's really positioned to be able to be that one-stop shop solution that can actually help really realize the opportunity that presents itself to the bank. So that's where we believe that, especially our contribution, I think that's going to be a really critical piece for us in getting that right, making sure that we deliver for our customers and enabling them to expand in a seamless way.
Thanks again, Cassie, for chatting with us today. To close out the podcast, we have our now infamous FinTech Jail. So this is where we ask for an industry term, buzzword, or trend that you've seen or heard enough of. Or, of course, you can advocate to free one of the previously incarcerated terms. So what would your selection be for this week?
So this week, I'd like to put in jail the stablecoin sandwich. And the reason why I'd like to put the stablecoin sandwich term in jail is because actually, while the concept of using a stablecoin to bridge between fiat currencies is fantastic, it's what we've built our business on. Actually, banks and financial institutions just saying, I want to do the stablecoin sandwich is kind of a little bit crazy. What they actually mean is that they want to solve customer problems. They want to be able to deliver payments faster, cheaper, more cost effectively. And in order to do that, they might need to do the stablecoin sandwich, and they should do the stablecoin sandwich. But ultimately, I think what's really important is that we go back to solving problems and not just naming tech.
Well, that sounds good to me. I'm more than happy to add the stablecoin sandwich to the jail then this week, and we'll see later down the line if anyone wants to advocate to break that one and back out again. But for now, Cassie, thank you so much again for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, that's all we have time for this week. Thanks, of course, to Cassie for joining me. As for FinTech Futures, you can find us online at fintechfutures.com. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn to keep up with the latest fintech news. If you like this podcast and our other episodes, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or your favorite podcasting service to get notified about future episodes. Thanks as well to Arama for editing this podcast. You can check them out at arama.tv. As always, thank you very much for your support, and we'll see you soon for another episode of What the FinTech. But until then, goodbye.